And the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, Every man of the people of Israel shall camp by his standard, his own standard, with the ensign of their father's house. Far from the tent of meeting shall they camp. And on the east side, toward the rising of the sun, shall they of the standard of the camp of Judah camp their armies. And Nahshon, the son of Amminadab, shall be captain of the son of Judah, of the sons of Judah. And his army, and those who were counted of them, were 74,600.
And our Haftorah reading for today is from the only Italian Jewish prophet, Malachi. Right? I'm just kidding. It's from Malachi 4:2. But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings, and you will go forth and frolic like calves from the stall. And the Brit Hadashah is double portion today. So Matthew 2:1-2. Which says, Now after Yeshua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. And also Mark 16:2. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. Okay, so the traditional Hebrew title for the book of Numbers is Bamidbar, right? So in the wilderness, which is a phrase taken from the opening line. The English title Numbers came from the Septuagint and the Latin Vulgate, if you're familiar, and it is based on the numbering or the census of the people in the first chapters. Now, the book of Numbers is not an independent book. We know that, right? None of the books are really separated in the way that our Bibles separate them. And that's why, of course, we have a Torah scroll, right, to remind us that really these books are a matter of sections that are really part of a larger unified work. So when we see and read the Torah in this way, one of the things that we are meant to notice as we look at the structure of this larger work is that the list of laws, mostly given in Leviticus, is given between two narrative accounts, okay? Two stories. So the section of Leviticus gives us laws, and those laws are nestled between two stories. The first story is the incident of the golden calf, okay, in Exodus 32. And the second is here in Numbers, okay? The narrative picks up here in the book of Numbers, in the taking of the census and the arranging of the tribes in relationship to the tabernacle. So these stories are striking contrasts, okay? The golden calf incident is a picture of the people running wild, the text says, right? In sin, running wild. They went out to play, okay? And by the time we get to Numbers, we see the people facing the tent of meeting in an orderly arrangement. Now, the thing that we are supposed to notice, that the author intends us to notice from this contrast, is that the Torah brings order. Amen? The Torah brings order. The giving of the laws brought much needed order to the people. And when God gave those laws that we see in Leviticus, they had a very beneficial effect on the people. They went from disorderly false worship to worship of the one true and only God. Now, in the camp, back in Numbers, each tribe was to be positioned facing the tent of meeting on every side, right? In the north, east, south, and west. And there's actually great meaning that is to be found in this orderly arrangement of the tribes around the tabernacle. God and Moses were very purposeful to highlight the importance and the centrality of the tribe of Judah in this arrangement, especially when God says to position Judah on the east side toward the sunrise. The east side toward the sunrise. Now, we will get to the significance of this eastward position toward the sunrise shortly, but first let's briefly notice that according to the census that is taken, the tribe of Judah comes out to be actually the largest tribe out of all of them, with 74,600 men, okay? These are just men, actually, that were able to do military service. Okay, so since Jacob's prophecy to his 12 sons back in Genesis 49, Judah had been gaining the dominant position over the other tribes. And even though Reuben, even though he was the firstborn, Judah was the tribe through which the royal son, the lion-like son, would be born, who would bring redemption to God's people. Now, in the Torah, this redemption, or this hope for redemption, was very often captured through the notion of moving eastward, toward the sunrise. Because, as we know, the sun rises in the east. Amen? So this movement eastward and the imagery of sunrise or dawn has everything to do with hope for redemption, according to Torah literature. So Genesis, in fact, devotes a lot of attention to the notion of the east, And the first and really the biggest mention is that God planted the garden where? East of Eden. East of Eden. And he established humankind there, in the east, in the garden. But of course, we know what happened. We lost that paradise, and we were banished from that land of promise and of paradise. And the rest of the Torah records the hope of regaining that paradise. And again, the way the ancients captured that hope of future redemption was through this God's redemption would come from the east, and that this redemption would be a time of, in fact, restoring or regaining God's original blessing and the gift of the land and creation. Now, moving eastward toward the sunrise serves also as a reminder of moving out of the wilderness and returning into God's promised land. And this is, in fact, what the book of Numbers is all about. Well, in our Torah portion for today, where did God position the tribe of Judah? Yes, on the east side toward the sunrise shall be the standing or the the standard or the flag of the camp of Judah. So out of all the tribes, why place Judah in the east toward the sunrise? Because redemption would come from the tribe of Judah, from the banner of Judah. And this imagery of the sunrise in the east is not only preserved, but gets even more developed with messianic prophecies as we move forward into the writings and the prophets. So in Malachi 4, Malachi 4 is a clear and prominent messianic prophecy. This is actually where God says Elijah will come before the day of the Lord. But just before we read about the mention of Elijah, it says, "But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings." And actually, I love the verse that comes right after. Malachi says, "Remember what? Remember the law of Moses, all right, my servant, the statutes and the ordinances which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel." So what comes right after is a reference to the Torah, to all the laws and the order that God gave to Moses and to all Israel, right? The law of Moses included the order of the tribes, as in our Torah portion for today. And so that order was very important, and in fact, redemption itself would flow from that order around the tabernacle. Finally, when we reach the 1st century, messianic expectations have developed even more, and guess what? The concept of the east and sunrise are not only preserved, not only developed even further, but finally find fulfillment. Matthew opens by saying, "Now after Yeshua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod, Magi arrived in Jerusalem saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east." We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. The Greek word for east here means rising, okay, or in the direction of the sun's rising. So the star of the promised ruler from the tribe of Judah is itself positioned in the east. Okay, and it was moving toward, and it was in fact moving toward this rising that the Magi could find and locate the King of the Jews, the one to whom the scepter belongs. And finally, the prophecy in Malachi about the Son of Righteousness rising with healing in its wings takes on a whole new depth of meaning when we read the account of the resurrection in light of this ancient theme of the sun rising in the east. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, on that third day, when the sun, at dawn, that's not insignificant. When the sun had risen, they went to the tomb, and what did they find? Nothing, right? No one, in fact. For he is not here. He was risen. Okay? So like the sun that rises in the east, the Son of God arose with the sunrise in the east on the third day as the fulfillment of the Torah's hope of redemption, rising in the east and restoring the paradise that was once lost. In Yeshua, paradise is regained. And the royal ruler from the tribe of Judah, in that royal ruler, we go out of the wilderness and into the promised land. Shabbat Shalom.